Um, Hello everyone. Welcome to this episode of Behind the Wrestler, presented by the Hughes Academy. My guest tonight is none other than Hayden Daniels. Thank you very much for joining me this evening.
No problem. Happy to do it.
So my first question to you is, how did you get into wrestling, and how did you find a wrestling school?
Yeah, so basically I was playing rugby and I'd suffered a few injuries on my shoulder, and I wanted to do something that was going to keep me motivated to stay in shape and still enjoy a bit of physicality, which is something I enjoyed with rugby. So I'd always been a fan of wrestling, so I just Googled up the name of a couple of training schools in Auckland and did a bit of background into Graham, the head trainer, and saw he had a pretty reputable background from the UK. So called him up and he said, well, we've actually got a training camp for a couple of days in January a few years ago. So I said, cool, I'll come along, and the rest is history, I guess.
How did you find the transition from playing rugby and going into wrestling training and your first wrestling training session?
Yeah, I mean, the rugby training is obviously very different. I mean, you train with contact and all the time, and then obviously when you play, there's a lot of contact all the time, but man, it didn't really prepare me at all for the 2-day wrestling camp. I was sore after that. My body was actually aching. I'd never actually been so sore from even rugby training. So yeah, it's very different, I suppose. The impacts are very different. I guess in wrestling it's a lot of high impact. In rugby it's high impact sometimes. Other times it's just close in stuff. So the wrestling training, there's a lot of bumping all the time. So yeah, I wouldn't say that rugby prepared me greatly. It did prepare me in the fact of athleticism and work ethic and training. So yeah, I mean, yes and no to preparing me well, but I think yeah, it set me up well physically because I already had the build and that base behind me as well.
How did you expect your first in-ring debut and match to go? How did you prepare yourself mentally and training wise?
Yeah, so my first match was at a non-official show. It was at a music festival in Tauranga. So in some ways it was really good because the pressure was off a little bit. It wasn't a proper show. People weren't really there to watch the wrestling. They were there kind of to see this kind of music festival, and we just had a ring in the middle of the field around the band. So in that sense it was quite nice. The pressure wasn't as it may have been coming out with an entrance and a ramp and all that kind of thing. So that was a positive. Training wise, preparing for it, obviously went through the match a lot of times. It was against Kartik, and yeah, we went through the match a lot, and yeah, just ran through some things. Obviously doing your first match, you want it to be clear in your mind what you're doing. So and they say pro wrestling is actually a thinking man's game, because you actually have a lot of things to think about, and not just remembering moves, but trying to remember crowd work and just remember everything. So yeah, we did go over it a lot, and I mean, I was nervous, but it was a fairly short match, so it was kind of in and out. But yeah, no, I remember being pretty excited. We'd driven from Auckland that morning, gone down to Tauranga, and it was kind of like a 24-hour trip with no sleep, but it was kind of like a good introduction to a kind of a wrestling road trip, really.
How was your first wrestling road trip? As you mentioned, it was your first wrestling road trip as well.
Yeah, the first wrestling road trip was fun. I mean, Kartik actually picked me up in the morning, which was cool, and also a bit scary. His driving was actually quite dodgy on the day. Going over curbs and roundabouts, and generally kind of fearing for my life on the way. But once we got there, set up the ring, met some other wrestlers who'd come from out of town who I hadn't met before, so it was a good opportunity to network and meet with some of the other guys and talk to them. Most of them hadn't met me before. It was only a couple of months after I'd started training, so in that sense it was quite an early debut for me. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it, the experience. I mean, it was pretty surreal. It was kind of like a bogan music festival, so it was quite surreal, and as I say, it's pretty much 24 hours from way to go. And Carter picked me up at about 6 in the morning. We drove down. I ended up driving the trailer back. There was an Eminem concert that night, so everyone got caught in traffic coming back, and after all the stops at McDonald's on the way back, I think I got to bed about 3-4 in the morning. So it was hectic, but yeah, I really enjoyed it.
How did you find out about your first official show match into proper Hughes Academy show, where it wasn't in a music festival, as the Kelston Community Centre. How'd you find out about your first match, and how did you prepare? What was going through your mind, and yeah.
Yeah, so I'd appeared in a show before and done a run-in during a match and just kind of laid out a couple of people. But as far as an official match at a show, I hadn't yet done that. And Graham basically just sent me the picture of the promotion for the match. It was going to be against Charlie Roberts, which I was pretty excited about because I've done a lot of training with Charlie, and he's one of the most experienced wrestlers in the country. So to go from training with him to wrestling him in my first match, gave me a lot of confidence. He'd be leading the match. He's very experienced, and I had a lot of confidence because of his in-ring ability, and that if anything went wrong, he would cover it. He'd lead us through, and we'd put on a good show. So I was really excited about it, and I always had a good relationship with Charlie. So we talked through the match and basically went through the story that we wanted to tell. And once again, it wasn't going to be a huge, long match. We wanted to tell a story in the allotted time. And yeah, no, it was just really enjoyable. My family and friends came out for my first match. And yeah, I was really nervous. At the same time, I was dealing with my shoulder injuries as well. I think the first clothesline in the match, it popped out. And then just went back in. So I was dealing with that as well, so I was a little bit nervous, but no, it actually went really well. I was really happy with it, and yeah, it was cool to have my family and friends there and introduce them to pro wrestling.
How did your family and friends take the news where you announced them that you are going to be pursuing this dream of becoming a professional wrestler?
Well, yeah, I'm very lucky. My family and friends have always been very supportive of everything I do, especially my family. So when I told them that I was pro wrestling training, they thought it was pretty cool because, despite it being quite a niche and unusual thing, it's a positive thing. I'm not out on the road doing boy racing or doing skids on the road or something like that. So it's a positive, and they know that I've always been a fan of wrestling from a young age, and I've talked about it for a long time, but life gets busy, life gets hectic. I've done a lot of travelling, I've got my teaching degree, I've been a teacher, I've played rugby, so things just kind of got on and I just kind of never got around to it. So to have the opportunity to train and finally have my match, my family and friends were really excited, and I think that was reflective of people that turned out to watch me. So yeah, really positive.
You just mentioned that you have your teacher's degree. How did you get interested in becoming a teacher, also doing pro wrestling?
Yeah, so out of school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I worked as a customs officer at the airport for a year, kind of like a working gap year, and then I'd always enjoyed working with kids, so I thought I'd pursue teaching. So I went to the University of Auckland, got my degree there, 3-year degree, and ever since then I've basically been teaching. It's been a great degree to have. I've been around the world with it. I taught in London because I've got a British passport, so that's been really good. And yeah, it's actually pretty cool now being a pro wrestler and a primary school teacher. The kids think that's awesome. It's a pretty unusual combination. And when I was teaching in West Auckland, it was really great for the kids to be able to come and watch me perform every 6 weeks or so. Usually got a decent crowd of kids coming out. So yeah, it just added another layer of to my kind of teaching, I guess. But yeah, no, it's really cool.
How did you first find out about wrestling, and who inspired you to become a wrestler yourself?
Yeah, I remember first finding out about professional wrestling really when I was in about intermediate, so that would have been around 98, and it was kind of the boom period of wrestling. So you had WCW Nitro and Raw going head to head, and at that time I think WCW was about 6 months delayed in New Zealand, and you have to stay up to about midnight to watch it on TV too. So I used to do that and go down to the video store and rent out the videos and all that kind of thing. So I actually got into it through a friend at intermediate. He was talking about all these pay-per-views like Halloween Havoc and all these WCW pay-per-views. I was like, what are you talking about? And so he explained it to me, and so I watched it, and I remember I think watching Raw, I think on TV4 as it was back then, and seeing Stone Cold and DX and The Rock and all these guys, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And just the energy and just how the crowd reaction, and I was just kind of hooked from then, and I remember always remembering The Rock and his promos and things like that. I think he was probably one of the biggest inspirations and biggest hooks for me into pro wrestling. Obviously still a big fan of his today, seeing his transition into Hollywood and kind of as a motivational figure. So yeah, it was pretty much at intermediate, yeah.
You mentioned your I assume he's your favorite wrestler, The Rock. Do you obviously you have a very athletic physique yourself as well. Did he also inspire you to get into a better physique to look like him?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose my physique's it's been a work in progress for a long time. When I left school, I was actually pretty fat. I was about 120 to 130 kilos, like actually fat. So my main motivation when I left school going to the gym was basically to get some girls and go on some dates, because it hadn't really happened. So that was my main motivation. But yeah, it just went in stages for me. I lost a lot of weight, and then I met a few guys, and they said, you should start trying to lift a bit heavier, and really got into the weightlifting. And yeah, but obviously, I mean, in the last few years, in particular since The Rock's kind of got really big in Hollywood, his physique's really kind of taken off, and he posts a lot of videos, and so that's obviously really inspirational to see a guy like that at his age still grinding like he does, and pushing those weights, and just seeing how busy he is. I think I'm busy with teaching and all this stuff, and this guy sometimes gets 4 hours a night and he's still gymming. So that kind of thing is really motivational, yeah.
With the I'm just gonna take you back to your match against Charlie Roberts. You mentioned that you delivered a clothesline and your shoulder popped out. How long did it take you to rehab it back to get it strong enough to compete in the ring again?
Yeah, well, I mean, my shoulder's been an ongoing issue since about 2009 when it badly dislocated in a rugby match. Had to go to hospital. Since that time, it would dislocate all the time, so I'd had two shoulder reconstructions on that before I started my wrestling training. It was fairly stable when I started my wrestling training, but prior to debuting, it had started to become a little bit unstable again. So obviously, doing that clothesline, it popped out and went straight back in. So the faster it went back in, the less pain it was and the less rehab. So from that one event itself, there wasn't a massive amount of rehab. I just kind of kept going. But in the months after that, it got to the point where it was kind of popping out, going over a bump in a car or putting on a t-shirt or in my sleep. So it got really unstable. So I went and saw another surgeon who'd done a lot of the All Blacks, and he actually did a different procedure, which was a bone graft, basically just to reconstruct the whole joint. That was at the end of 2014. So basically, less than 6 months after my debut, I was on the shelf again for 6 months. So I had my shoulder in a sling for 6 weeks, and obviously you couldn't really train or anything like that. So and I really wanted to take the rehab slow because I'd perhaps rush the last ones. And I think I came back, I can't remember, but yeah, probably 5-6 months later, but I really noticed a change in my physique at that time because I hadn't been able to lift or properly or do any of those things. So, but it's paid off, the rehab, because it hasn't popped out for the better part of 3 years now since that surgery. So it was really positive.
Do you find that it gives you any trouble in the ring currently, or is it all okay, all good to go?
Yeah, I mean, in the ring, it doesn't give me too many problems, my shoulder, at the moment. I mean, there's obviously flexibility issues there with all the scar tissue, and in the gym, I've noticed it with the pushing exercises. My strength is a little bit down on what it was. I'll never be as strong as I was. But in the ring, I think you work around it. You do what you're comfortable with. You're obviously working with someone else in the ring as well, so they're aware of it. So no, it hasn't hampered me at all, and I've got to the point now where I don't even think about it in the ring, which is really positive, so I can just go out there and concentrate on my match and performing.
Recently, you were involved in a match to determine the number one contender for the Who's Academy Championship, and you walked away as the new number one contender for the Who's Academy Championship. How did that come about, and how did you find the experience in the match and the whole experience through that?
Yeah, so last show I became the number one contender for the Hughes Academy title, which is the first time I've kind of been in that position, so to speak. It felt really good to be put in that position by the company, and it's been quite a long road for me. There's been times when I've kind of gone overseas and wrestled a little bit, and I've kind of taken a little bit of a break from wrestling in New Zealand. There's been frustrating times, and all those kind of ups and downs that you experience in wrestling. And so to get back to the point where I've had a solid run with the Hughes Academy over the last year and built up some good performances, and got to the point where I'm regarded as a pretty reliable performer. So when I go out there, the promoter knows that I'm going to put on a good show. I'm going to give a good match every time, which means a lot to me, and I pride myself on that. So to be recognised with the number one contendership is really exciting for me. It's the first time, so I'm looking forward to cashing that in October against Kenneth, and hopefully walking out with my first singles championship.
You also mentioned you have been overseas to do some shows and be involved international shows. How did all of that come about, and how was all of that experience to you?
Yeah, wrestling overseas is fantastic. I wrestled in Queensland and Brisbane, and also in Sydney. It basically just came about through word of mouth. I just asked a few people. They said, hit up these guys, sent them a few of my videos. They liked what they saw. They invited me over. Ended up wrestling on Queensland's biggest show of the year in 2015. In a singles match and number one contenders match for their title, and also in a battle royal, which is a great experience for me. And then I've wrestled in Sydney. Actually did the Supernova Expo, which is like Armageddon, but their ring was basically in the middle of the Sydney Dome. Everyone had to walk past. The crowd was actually huge, so and especially the different sessions during the day. And I got about 4 matches a day for 3 days, which at that stage of my career was fantastic experience for me. So. And I got a lot of contacts from that. I met Jake the Snake Roberts. A few months later he came to New Zealand. We had dinner. We talked. Just making all those kind of contacts through Australia. I wrestled guys like, AJ Istria, who's one of the best in Australia. He's on the PWI top 500 list. He's wrestling for Pro Wrestling Noah at the moment. So just making those contacts and having matches with those kind of guys was really positive, and I really enjoyed it.
You mentioned you had the chance and the opportunity to meet Jake the Roberts. How did that experience come about and help you mentally, and what kind of advice did he give you?
Yeah, Jake the Snake came about meeting him through AWF at the Supernova Pop Culture Expo. He was basically set up next to us, next to the ring. So obviously we had the chance to talk to him all day. Hell of a nice guy. He was there with his daughter, and we actually had a common connection. He knows a friend of mine who's a personal trainer who'd done a bit of work with DDP yoga, so he'd met my friend in America when he was over there, so we had a chat about that. And he was there. He basically watched all our matches, and he gave some really good advice. I was the New Zealander. I'd come out before every match on the mic and cut promos and stuff, and gave me a bit of advice on the promos. He really enjoyed my promos. He said I was good on the mic, so that was really cool and reassuring to hear. And I think the advice he gave me in the ring was, I've got a big physical presence, just slow down, just take your time, be methodical, which I've really taken on board. So I think in my early days, when you're new and you're new to the game, you're trying to rush everything, you're trying to get through everything, you don't want to stuff anything up, but you rush, you just need to slow down and take it easy. And I think you've seen that in my matches since then. I've become a lot more relaxed in the ring, a lot less rigid, and just taking my time, being methodical. And I think you slow it down, and you let the crowd come into it a little more. So it's really valuable advice.
Recently, obviously it's made public as of a few days ago, you were involved in a reality show, Married at First Sight. How did all of that come about, and how did they approach you about doing the show?
Yes, so Married at First Sight, New Zealand's going to air October 1st, be the first episode. I saw the applications go out in about April. They said, apply for the show if you want to be married to a stranger. I thought, hey, what could be better than marrying a stranger? But no, I've had quite a few long-term relationships, and for one reason or another, they just haven't quite worked out. So I thought, hey, I'll give this a crack. It could be awesome. Could meet the love of my life. It is a legal marriage, so I'm now legally married, which is scary, but cool at the same time. And yeah, it's a life experience at the end of the day. If it doesn't work out, it's not many people in the world can say they've done it. So they approached me after I applied and offered me a position, I guess you call it, on the show. I don't really know what you call it. And I accepted it. So I've been filming that recently. So it's been a crazy experience. Meeting someone and a stranger and being around them 24 hours a day for a few weeks is it's pretty unnatural, pretty weird, but pretty tiring, but also very cool at the same time.
With the experience of shooting with professional cameras and professional people, did that give you the experience and a bit of training on how to react in front of cameras and change emotions and switch into characters?
Yeah, I mean, having the cameras follow me around with Married at First Sight was quite weird. They talk about it being the third person in the relationship, so you're trying to build a relationship and suddenly you have the cameras going. I mean, for me though, I tried to just be myself and stay as natural as I could around the cameras. I was always genuine and true to myself, so I think that's what you're going to see when you watch the show. I've always been a straight up person, everyone knows that. So I mean, I was just trying to be myself when the cameras are around and pretend they weren't there to a point. But it did become difficult because obviously you are aware when you're being filmed, and you do have that in the back of your mind.
How are you gonna transition all of this experience with the company that you have worked with into your role into the professional wrestling world?
Yeah, so I'm hoping appearing on the reality show will obviously I appeared on it to find a wife, but it can have other spin-off benefits both for the companies that I wrestle for and myself with the opportunities that may arise in wrestling. So I'm hoping it's going to be twofold, that the wrestling companies can use my name to promote their shows and promote New Zealand wrestling and get a few more bums on seats, and in turn I'll be hoping to get some opportunities to wrestle certain people and for championships and things like that. So I'm really hoping it's a two-way positive thing for both myself and New Zealand wrestling.
What is your take on the New Zealand wrestling scene as it's getting more eyes and more visual on it now than it ever has?
Yeah, the New Zealand wrestling scene's always been an interesting one. It kind of goes in waves. There's often, there has been a lot of drama and things like that in the past with different companies, but over the last year or so it's really been encouraging to see that all the talent from all different companies are working together on different shows. And because the New Zealand wrestling scene isn't really big enough to say you can only exclusively work on this show or that show, and everyone should be working together and supporting each other, which I think we're starting to see happen. Obviously we've got the new company down south, UCW, which I've wrestled in for a little bit, and there's been a bit of controversy there, but I just try and stay out of it now. If someone wants to book me, they can they know how to get in contact with me, they can make me an offer, and we'll go from there. And I wrestle, I leave. I just kind of stay out of all the other stuff now. I did used to buy into it a little bit and get into a bit of the drama with the backstage stuff, but now I just stay out of all of that. And as a result of that, I'm really enjoying my wrestling and enjoying wrestling more than I ever have. So, but I think the vibe compared to how it was backstage a couple of years ago is just really positive. Yeah.
What is your ultimate goal as a professional wrestler?
Yeah, as a professional wrestler, obviously the ultimate goal would be to train in the WWE, go to the Performance Centre. Whether that's going to happen, as life goes on, you've kind of got to temper your goals sometimes and be realistic with them. I did start in the wrestling game quite late. I'm 31 now, so and to do my career and a few injuries behind me. So I mean, I'm just looking to enjoy my wrestling in New Zealand and put my best performances forward in the matches, and come up with a catalogue of footage to show what I can do. So if those opportunities do arise, I can say, hey, well, this is what I bring to the table. So yeah, my focus at the moment is just to enjoy my stuff in New Zealand, and with the show that's coming out, just see what comes out of that.
What is next for Hayden Daniels?
What's next for the genetic pitbull Hayden Daniels? Well, I guess what's next is be married to a stranger, so I'm doing that, and then we've got a huge show at the RSA, first RSA show, 29th of September, so I'm looking forward to that. And then come October, it's me versus Ken for the championship. I wrestled Kenneth before, and in a triple threat match with Devon Lockhart, came out on top. So I'm predicting that'll be the case again in October. So Hughes Academy Championship is in my future, and that's what I'm gunning for at the moment.
Do you think you are mentally ready for this match on October 21st at the Kelston Intermediate against Kenneth?
Oh, I'm definitely 100% mentally ready for the challenge of Kenneth. I mean, I'm more experienced than Kenneth. He's started his wrestling career after me. I think I've got him scouted pretty well. I've wrestled him before. I've watched his matches, and most of his wins usually come with a bit of distraction from Tabitha. So that's something I've scouted pretty closely. So I'm pretty aware of the games and the monkey business those two get up to. So I'll be looking out for that. And I think I'm a teacher. I'm pretty smart. So I've got a few tricks up my sleeve as well.
Thank you very much, Hayden Daniels, for giving me your time this evening, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Behind the Wrestler.
Not a problem at all. Thanks, guys.